Hey guys, this is a knee program. I'm going to try to put it on Facebook, but we'll see what happens. And there's a gentleman out there that might be able to do a testimony for you guys. He had pretty bad knee problems. And so this is recommended. I've been working on this program, I don't know, about 12, 15 years maybe, and pulled from a lot of different sources. But let me give you the overview. It's about 5 basic exercises. The first is you're going to do some joint rotations to warm up the knee and some stretching. Obviously, you want to stretch out your quads and hams. That's pretty important, and your calves to work with the muscles surrounding the knee and loosen those up a little bit. And that's your warm-up. Then you want to do an assisted squat. An assisted squat would be grabbing onto something like a door here and keeping your knees back behind your toes as you do an assisted squat. There's 2 basic assisted squats that I'll go over. The next thing you want to do is a regular squats, and I like doing Hindu squats, but I also do what I call micro adjustments in there. We micro adjust the feet, micro adjust the knees, micro adjust the hips, and then micro adjust the body during that. Then the last 2 most important ones are side lunges and ice skaters. So we'll do some side lunges, which is different than snake creeps down in Tai Chi. We're going to turn our foot in and stretch the medial aspect of the leg and the medial aspect of the knee. I'll show you some cheater ways. I'll show you some advanced ways. And the last version of level 1 knee material is ice skaters. So you've seen ice skaters before, I'm sure, but it's extremely important to start to develop some slight torsional aspect to the knees. And it works really well, but you got to do it in that particular order. So the first thing is you do your stretches. Jefferson curls are really great, or in Tai Chi we call them roll-ups, roll down and roll-ups. Those are great for your, your hamstrings and your glutes. You want to start with your hands locked, your knees locked position, and you rotate your kneecaps and get those warmed up. Get your kneecaps really loose and warm, massaging that area of your knees on both sides. Then from the locked position, you come out, around, and back into the locked position. Normally I never lock my knees, but from that locked position coming out and around, it grinds the corners and opens up the corners of the knees. And of course, go to your level of capacity, out and around, out and around, out and around, just as a nice gentle warm-up. Never try to go, while you're doing these rehabilitation, into an area where you feel uncomfortable, where you're afraid, where you're worried you're going to hurt yourself. Work within your range. I've just got a door right here. I guess you can't see it in the door frame. I'm leaning way back, and the idea is this is not a workout, this is more rehabilitation, but keeping the knees back behind, my knees are almost on top of my heels in a sense. And you're going to do however many sets of everything, 1 set of everything, but as many repetitions as you can without burning out. Again, this is not a workout, this is reconnecting and realigning the joints. So I'm coming up and coming back down. Those are assisted. Then the knee itself is not a hinge joint. A hinge joint basically is like a door. If it was a hinge joint and I were to do this, that's a hinge. Your knee would just fall apart and would break. It's not a hinge joint. It's actually a universal ball joint that fits in place. So there's a center point on the bottom and there's a knuckle. And the joint actually rotates in place like this. So in the old school Olympic weightlifting, they actually did put the knee over top of the foot. But you only do that when the leg has gone beyond the 90-degree mark. That's when the knee can go out over top of the foot, and then you bring it back over top of the foot before the 90-degree point of your knee. In other words, your femur on top of your tibia fibula. Right, so we're going to do that with assistedness. I don't know if you can see this really well here. But as I go down, as I go down, as I go down, I'm getting to that 90 degree. Once I've dropped beneath that 90 degree point, I can roll my knee forward over top of my toes. I can even come up on the ball of my feet and come back and back up. Let me see if I can rearrange this briefly for you to get a better view for you guys here. Let's see if this works a little better so you can see it. All right. And so as I'm coming down again, there's that 90-degree angle. Once I'm beyond that 90-degree angle, I can move my feet over top of my knees, just like the Asians squat all the time. This opens up your knees. This opens up your ankles. It's full range of motion. You have to expand your knee joint and your ankle joint in this particular way. If you want to come up and move forward and stretch out a little bit of your hamstrings, you can. Keep your heels on the ground, you can. Or if you've got to go on the balls of your feet a little bit, that's fine. You're going to roll back as you come up and out. And that assisted squat is going to allow you to track and reprogram your neuromuscular understanding. Hey, girl. And back up. So it'll reprogram that as you're doing this. So I'm coming down, 90 degree, roll forward, roll back up 90 degree, and up again. Retraining that. Okay, the next motion. We talked about squats, regular Hindu squats. You can look them up online. Hindu squats as I come back behind, come down, forward, and up, and back. Forward, and up. Right, so down, there's the 90 degree, rotate forward, come up, and there's the 90 degree and back again. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is rotate my feet. I'm going to do micro adjustments on my feet. Again, you got to take the joint through full range of motion. And then when you take the joint through full range of motion, you have to take it and strengthen it through a full range of motion and expand the limits of that particular motion. If you only do one particular line of motion, the other lines of motion become weak or atrophied. So you have to do micro adjustment. So watch my feet a little bit here. So as I do a squat here, now I'm going to move one foot. That's a real big exaggeration. I'm doing it for the video. Did you see that? Now I'm doing this with the other foot. So I'm turning them out slightly. My knees still track outwards the way they're supposed to. And I work into a plie squat. Right? Then I bring them back in. Now this is not true micro adjustment. This is macro adjusting. So I'm doing a little bit at a time, but I've trained this for so long that I can do macro adjustments. I'm just doing it again for the sake of the video. Turn one foot out. Now bring one foot back so they're staggered front to back. Bring it forward, staggered front to forward. That's micro adjusting of the feet. Now we're going to micro adjust the knees. So the knees themselves track in line over the main toe, over the secondary toe. What you're going to do is imagine bringing those knees slightly inward, and doing your squat. Everybody has seen females or even some type of males will even do this kind of thing when they squat all the time. Or they'll have their feet even turned out and they'll bring it in, and you'll see that a lot. And they're okay with their knees that way for a long period of time because the body has adapted and adjusted. And just doing a knee in a one line completely isolated, you're missing the other aspects of the knees that are going to train it and open it, make the joint open, but at the same time you've got to strengthen it because you can't have too much flexibility. You've got a weak joint. You see old yogis walk around, their hips just pop out of joint. You see bodybuilders that are over hypertrophic, too strong, no flexibility. You got to have both. This is what we work on. Okay, so once I've done them in slightly, micro adjust until you can do it much better. Okay, then you do it outward slightly, still tracking on the over top of the feet, but instead of saying my knees going into my second toe, they're going over my third toe. Still in line, but you can see the slight difference. See that? Micro adjust. That's micro adjusting the knees. The next thing you want to do to micro adjust the entire leg and the knees itself is lateral and medial motion. So I'm actually going to do a regular squat, but you don't really see what I'm doing. I'm actually pushing internally outwards, and I'll exaggerate it visually so you can see it. My knees are going to be pushing outwards, but really I'm just adding a little bit of outward tension as I do my squat. Then I do enough of those, 5, 10 of those, whatever. Then I do my pull in. So now I'm pulling my knees inward as I do my squat. Pushing them outwards. Now pulling them inwards. Okay? That's your knee micro adjustment. Now your hip micro adjustment. I turn my hip slightly. Turn my hip slightly. Turn my hip slightly. My knees still point over top of my feet, and then my hips come back over to the left and up and in center line. Center line to the left. I'm going to really exaggerate it. To the left, down, my knees still track with the feet. My hip turns and come up on the other side. This starts introducing a little bit of rotational movement, torsional movement in the knees. Just a little bit. That's hip micro adjustment. The next thing is body micro adjustment. You're never going to hit 50-50. And everybody does the push-ups, they'll do their sit-ups, they'll do their squats in the exact same line because they think they're trying to hit 50-50 and perfectly balanced. You'll never do it. The body always is going to have those curves through it and offset it. The key is to do it like Tai Chi. If you go 60-40, 70-30, you'll differentiate the substantial and insubstantial, or as in Tai Chi they say the yang and the yin. You differentiate it. That's what starts opening it up, and it's much easier to hit midline and rebalance the body. So I'm going to take my weight and shift it over 60-40, 70-30, 90-10, whatever, and do my squat on one side. I'm going to shift it over and do my squat on the other side. That's a lateral shifting of the hips, but an internal shifting of the weight. And again, that is all designed to open the knees. The last two important exercises, your side lunges and your ice skaters. The side lunges are very different. I'm not bringing my foot upwards to the sky and stretching out my hams, my glutes, my sartorius, whatever. No. I'm actually damn glad my sartorius and the gracilis muscle, the adductors. You want to stretch these out. And that's going to open up the medial aspect of the knee. The cheater's way to do it is put your hands on the ground. Let's back up a little bit so you can see this a little better. And put your butt up in the air, put your weight on your hands, and drop down to the other side. Put your weight on your hands and drop down to the other side. Once you get that, you can just come straight up and down on the other side. Notice that it's a lateral angle. So I'm coming up at a lateral angle and dropping down at a lateral angle, like two sides of an apex. Eventually, you're going to do the full triangle, right? So now you're going to come up, down, up, and down, getting these side lunges and really stretching that out. Then you can go full left and right, what we call left-right bow stance, and then you can add in the top part. So now I'm going to do triangle up, down to the right, over to the left, and up and reverse that, down, over, and up. That's a more advanced version. So those are three different basic levels of side lunges. First level, next exercise, ice skaters, vital. First level, I'll show you the more advanced level, but please be smart. Don't go too fast with this. You just basically step behind. And this is sort of a pas de bourrée in jazz and in ballet. It's also the ginga in capoeira. Whew, it's hot. I had 3 hours of working out here too. So step, ball, change, right? So now step and step down. It's that ice skater. You can go online and look it up in different ways. Most important thing in level 1 of ice skaters is to keep the hips oriented forward. If I start to turn my hips, my knee will start to torque over. And of course I do a lot of bagua and other exercises, so this looks really odd. It's very comfortable for me. That's not what you want to train. You want to make sure that that knee stays over top. The way to do that is to keep the hips mostly forward. Eventually you'll micro adjust the knees open, the hips a little more open, but yet my knee is still tracking forward over top of my foot. Right? So I want to keep my hips forward, don't rotate them too much, and drop. Level 1, ice skaters. Level 2 ice skaters is to micro adjust slightly, just open the hips just a little bit more, and you'll feel that into the hip joint beginning to open the hip joint. Once the hip joint is open, the knee joint becomes more open. So now we've got the ankles, the knees, and the hips that we're working on with all these exercises in full range of motion while strengthening and lengthening. Right? Eventually, down the road, those become actual full dragon squats. And there's a rear-weighted dragon squat. There's a front-weighted dragon squat. There's a 360 dragon squat low. There's a 360 dragon squat high. There's lots of variations off a dragon squat, something I've been doing for a while. These exercises work. They've healed lots of people. I've never had a knee, ankle, hip joint problem. Never had a training injury with the exception of once. When I was smart and did 101 degree, 2 hours of nonstop jumping dragon squats in the summer. without water, dehydrated, and pulled a hammy. My only training injury in 30 years, serious training injury in 30 years, outside of being in Krav Maga and somebody being a little funny with me. But I'm going to try to put this into a Facebook forum. I hope everybody can talk about the exercises, and we'll see what happens. I'll try to introduce you guys. Let me know how this works. There are level 2 and level 3. There are other exercises after this that are more advanced that'll fine-tune that. But unless your knee is bone on bone, this should do wonders. Thanks, guys.